we shall begin. Riley County Commission, Districts 2 and 3. I would like to introduce candidate Greg McKinley. He's a Republican for Riley County Commission District 2. And unfortunately, the Democratic candidate, Fannie Fang, had a family emergency and is unable to join us today. Candidates for Riley County Commission District 3 are Catherine Falk, Democrat, and John Matta, Republican. So we shall begin our opening statements, and Greg McKinley, I will let you go first.
Okay, as like I said, I understand Ms. Fang had an emergency. My thoughts are with her and her family. I hope everything works out. A little background information on me. I'm a lifelong Kansas resident. My wife and I celebrated our 45th anniversary this summer. We have 4 kids, 2 of whom were adopted through the Kansas foster system, and 7 grandkids. I'm a K-State graduate and retired this year after 40 years as an estimator and project manager for commercial contractors. In this role, I managed multiple projects, various sizes up to multi-million-dollar projects, coordinating work with subcontractors, suppliers, our own workforce to successfully complete projects with the owners. Previously, I lived in Manhattan for 19 years. In the last 14 years, I've lived in Riley. While living in Riley, my wife and I also had a small business for 4 years, so I understand the struggles small businesses go through. I've been on Riley City Council for 10 years. For the last 6 years, I've been president of the council. I've learned how to establish and work under municipal budget, learned that dealing with municipal budgets is different than business budgets. They're made 6 months in advance with very little room to adjust when conditions change. And Riley, our primary duties were to keep the basic city operations running. However, on the council, we've worked to improve the city. In addition to other projects, a new city hall building was built. The Dollar General came to town. And this fall, Clay County Medical opened a doctor's office in town. I realized early last year that we needed new representation on Riley County Commission. And I started discussing running for the office with others in the district and had a good response. So in March, I filed my papers to become a candidate.
Thank you, Greg. Catherine Falk, it is your turn to give your 2-minute opening address. Unmute yourself, Catherine, please.
Okay, you pronounce my last name Folke. All right.
Oh, Folke, I am so sorry. Thank you very much.
All right. All right. I'm Catherine Folke, and I'm running to be your county commissioner in the 3rd district. And I would like to take this time together to introduce myself. I was born and raised in rural Northwest Kansas to a family of farmers and ranchers. And I learned at an early age to be honest, hardworking, trustworthy, self-reliant, and to always be concerned for and take care of my neighbors. These values, in addition to a strong faith, have been the guiding force in my life. The first of my family to attend college, I graduated from K-State and began the journey of my career. I've worked in the design and construction industry for over 35 years. My daughter and I moved back to Manhattan in the year 2000. I worked with a custom builder, after which I established my own business, a kitchen and bath design remodeling firm with a showroom in downtown Manhattan. Currently, I work out of my home office on a referral basis. As an experienced and accomplished businesswoman, I understand budgets, contracts, organization of priorities, and I get projects done. The wants and needs of my clients, including their budgets, have always been my top priority. Open communication and dialogue are critical for business and leadership success. As an effective leader, one has to be willing to accept responsibility for their actions and to be able to listen and have those difficult conversations with compassion and empathy. She needs to be proactive in creating and problem solving, facing challenging situations, and in navigating change. We will face uncertain financial times due to the pandemic, and our commissioners need to be candid, forthright, and fiscally responsible with our tax dollars. Together we will move forward with the highest integrity and honesty as we move forward. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And John Matta.
Hi, I'm John Mata, Republican candidate for the 3rd District. I'm a 22-year Riley County resident, married to my wife Karen, 36 years this month. I have 2 daughters, Tori and Jody. I retired a year ago as Vice President of Logistics for Foot Locker. I'm a former Manhattan City Commissioner and Mayor and former Chair of the Riley County Law Board. My main 3 reasons for running are: 1, affordability. I have 35 years of experience driving efficiencies, lowering costs, and improving services. I believe I can keep the county's taxes and fees in check, or at least at the level of inflation. Secondly, economic development, both regionally and in particular rural economic development. Even before COVID, there were issues such as flattening sales tax revenue, rental vacancy rates rising, K-State enrollment down. Now with COVID, it's even worse. I plan to get a rural economic development advisory board set up for the county and to implement a comprehensive development plan. Third, regional local government cooperation. I believe to really achieve the other 2 initiatives, we need to combine forces whenever possible and to eliminate duplication and share resources, and work in concert on regional promotional efforts. I bring to the table the experience needed. I have managed budgets far larger than the county's budget and managed staffs multiple times the size of the county. I know what it's like to manage a large organization through others. I have had to and know how to make tough decisions. In addition, I have the government experience. My statement would not be complete without mentioning COVID. As a member of the Board of Health, I will take into account all health factors and do my best to balance the consequences of the decisions. Economic devastation, mental health issues, rising addiction, postponement of cardiovascular and cancer screenings, as well as falling behind on childhood immunizations. There's a lot to take into consideration. Lastly, I ask for your vote. However and whenever you cast it, as long as it's by November 3rd.
Okay, thank you very much. Catherine, I'm Catherine Foki. I'm going to let you start with the first question, which is: in many communities, emergency medical services provide preventative health care to help reduce unnecessary and costly trips to the emergency room, to connect patients with their providers, and to help the vulnerable with their unmet needs. Riley County EMS is a member of the Flint Hills Community Care Team, which has already demonstrated positive outcomes. Would you support Riley County EMS taking the next step toward operating in a mobile integrated health role? Why or why not?
Well, I would support them moving forward with this. It's a really good service to take to all of our community, especially into the North County where the services are lacking. A lot of the complaints from the North County is because of the EMS lack of time to get there. There is now the Clay Center, the health center that has set up the clinic in Raleigh. And I think that's very important. I haven't heard any reports on how that's doing, but I know the lady that is the nurse practitioner there, and I'm sure that she's working very effectively in getting services to people. But the EMS does need to be have a quicker response into the county and to all residents.
Thank you very much. Greg McKinley, would you like to answer that question, please? And I can repeat it if you would like me to, for part of it.
No, that's fine. I think I caught a lot of it. No, if there's a system like that the EMS can work more closely with people, like I said, especially outside of the Manhattan area, to help them, I think it'd be a great service. I'm not sure I'm not familiar with the program. I don't know what all the details are, but it sounds like it's something that would definitely help the community. And I would support that.
Wonderful. John Matta.
Yes, I agree with the other 2. I think it's a good thing to support. I think heading towards preventative care is one of the things that we need to do and not wait till those emergencies happen. Also, we have a lot of older individuals out into the county areas. If we could get it out there, I think that clinic up in Raleigh is going to be a big help. Greg's done a great job working with the city and getting that going. But this would be even, better to be able to take it out to more expanded areas. I think one of the things we want to look at, obviously, is the cost. Maybe there's some grant money that we could get to work it out. Also, look at others who have done it, and maybe we can get cooperative agreements too in order to do that, because that's one of the things we really don't have with EMS right now. And the other thing with EMS, we really need to address that station over on Claflin and it's one of the things we need to work on. Thank you.
Thank you. Greg McKinley, I'm going to let you answer this next question first. The economic impact of the pandemic is expected to be huge. With shrinking resources, what are your priorities and funding strategies for expenditures?
I know the county this year, because they've already set the budget for next year, and they did try to make adjustments to, expecting the lesser incomes coming in. And one of the things, they froze salaries, and the commissioners took a pay cut for this next year. And the county does have reserves. It looks like sales tax money is coming back. The one concern I think they have is property taxes, whether people will be paying. So far, they haven't had a problem. We just have to make adjustments as for whatever happens with the income part of it. Like I say, right now, it looks like they should be covered, and the county does have reserves to cover emergencies like that. So I think we'd be in good shape.
Okay, thank you. John Mata.
I think the first thing is the challenge is to keep the costs down. I don't think anyone's going to be able to afford a tax increase. Greg did mention the reserves. That's nice, but we're going to also have to look at where we could cut costs to make sure that we don't put extra financial burden. The other thing is with the money coming into the county, the Spark and those other funds, we need to make sure we really prioritize those well and get the best bang for our buck. The other thing I mentioned in my opening statement is the rural economic development. I think we need to look at it long term. It's going to take us a ways to, get out of this thing. And we need to work. I've already talked to a number of people in town, very excited about getting some initiatives going. There's a lot of resources out there for rural economic development. Even before the whole COVID thing hits, there's a number of them. We need to make sure we're taking advantage of them and letting our people know of all the resources that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Foki. Oh, make sure you unmute yourself, please.
Did that. I'm sorry. One of the things I've heard the most from constituents that I've met is that they're really concerned about the economics going forward with this pandemic. The biggest thing is tax dollars. They don't want their taxes to go up. They think they're too high. I've heard people say that their property taxes are higher than their family in California's homes are, and that's really a concern to me. The county does have reserves. The goal is $3.5 million, and there's about $2.9 million in the reserve. I understand that they spent some of those dollars for the new shooting gallery. That doesn't do a whole lot for our economic development in the county. But I think that I've been a small business owner. I understand how difficult it is to maintain a business, and especially during the economic crisis that we are facing. I would really want to look at numbers next year before we get into our budget discussions, and really look carefully on where we can cut, where we can economize, where we can do economies of scale and make things run smoother and less expensive in the county so that we can keep from increasing any taxes in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with John Mata. Is there a problem with systemic racism in Riley County? If so, in what ways should the commission address the effects? And if not, what safeguards do we need to assure that all our citizens are treated fairly?
Yeah, I think when you use this term systemic racism, it means that basically that's your core. You're racist at your core. You're fundamentally that way, which I don't think that's our community. However, do we have issues? Sure, we have issues. I've had people who've told me about them, and there's certain things that people don't even realize they're doing that have a bias, or they don't understand the cultures of other people. I think in the county, the thing we need to do, first of all, is listen and give a forum where people can come down and talk, be those town halls, and then take action on those items. Also, when it gets into regard to hiring practices, to make sure we're following the best hiring practices, make sure the police department is treating people fairly. One of the groups I've been involved with is the disabilities group. They do a lot of similar training as the race bias training, because there's a lot of bias against individuals with disabilities as well. And I've led efforts in that regard, as well as just efforts in my company with regards to making sure you're treating people with respect and realize some of those unconscious biases that you may have. The key will be taking action, will be listening, leading those efforts, and getting programs in place, because it's good to listen, but you also then have to come up with a plan and a program and make sure it happens.
Thank you. Catherine Foki.
Let me unmute it.
You're good.
I'm muted. Thank you. Okay, in our last forum, we talked about systemic racism, and I know there is systemic racism, but when you talk systemic anything, it refers to what is ingrained in our institutions in addition to in our minds. As a woman, I've faced all sorts of discrimination, but I can never understand totally what it's like to be discriminated against because of my color. I believe that changes are needed in the county to be more inclusive of minorities. Every year, thousands of students and military personnel move here, and so that support our economy, and they provide a real capable workforce. We need to create a healthy and welcoming community environment for quality of life and for all the people that come into our community and the ones that are already here. I've heard a lot of stories about racism and inequalities. I would really work to bring diverse groups together and discuss what the problems are and work together to try to solve some of these issues and work towards systemic equality. That would be the thing that I would be working towards in our county and in our entire community.
Thank you. Greg McKinley.
I'm sorry. Yeah, as John said, I don't know, systemic, different people define it, I think, differently. The systemic, I don't think it's a part of how we are. Are there problems? Sure, nobody's perfect. There can be there's always things we can do more to make sure that everybody has an equal opportunity within the community, within the county. Like I said, one of the things when there are job openings come in the county, we need to make sure they're open to make sure they're advertised widely so that all people know about it. The other thing, advisory boards, there's, 15 or 20 advisory boards that the county has. They don't really advertise. They've got one little sheet on a web page that shows it. I think there should be advertisements showing the different things that are going on in the county that people can get in, and to get more people involved with the county through that. Because I've heard people say they didn't even know there were any advisory boards, and I think they can open them up more. It's just kind of the same people, I guess, have stayed through them. And I think that'd help open up to everything.
Thank you very much, Greg. Okay, Catherine, I'm going to start with you on the next question. Riley County has one of the highest childhood poverty and food insecurity rates in the state. That impacts finding affordable housing, childcare resources, and securing a living wage for full-time workers. How should the commission address those needs?
That is a real problem in our community. Like you said, Riley County has one of the highest poverty rates in the state. And that is really disturbing to a lot of people that don't realize how many food insecure children we have in our schools. There are a lot of children that come to school without breakfast, and that will be the only place to have another meal of the day. There are a lot of groups in our community that deal with this. I'm involved with the Common Table, which provides a nightly meal every night of the week down in the core area of our city. And I've met some incredible people and people that are living on the edge, homeless people, and a lot of children that are undernourished and have no place to live. So it is a real problem. I would really work toward doing more work within the county to bring people together and develop some more programs to feed and to take care a lot of the other children and people in our community that are having problems. Getting a good job is a big one. And I think that there are a lot of things that the county could do to stimulate new job creations, new businesses that could come and locate to the county that would provide good living wages to a lot of our people to bring them up out of poverty. And that's always been the goal of anti-poverty people and businesses and people that work with it all the time. So.
Thank you. Greg McKinley.
Yeah, like I said, obviously poverty and food insecurity is a problem. As far as what the county do, one thing, keeping our taxes low to which helps affordable housing. As Catherine mentioned, trying economic development to try to bring in well-paying jobs to make sure everyone has well-paying jobs. Food insecurity. I know the schools do a good job during the year. There's programs for breakfast and lunch, and I know there's been programs set up working through the summers to help do those. I know they've got one. They started one last year here in Riley, even a couple of days a week having lunch. And then today this summer with all the COVID stuff, the schools were giving out food all through the summer too. As far as other specific programs, I don't know. I mean, that's obviously something we have to take care of. We have to take care of all the people in the county.
Thank you. John Mata.
Like the other candidates, I think the county should facilitate with groups that are helping those in poverty and seeing what we can do as well. But the long-term answer is the economic growth. I was walking door to door the other day out in Keats and was talking to a gentleman, and he was saying how our cost of living is high, but the wages don't match the cost of living. And he actually works for the Carpenters Union, and they use a scale for Manhattan that's like Topeka, not Kansas City, because they say you're not Kansas City, you don't need that wage. But actually, our cost of living is a lot higher than parts of Kansas City. So part of that EcoDevo program I want to do for rural development is really to survey the county and find out what things we are lacking in order to get businesses out there. One that comes to mind like is broadband, which is one of the things that we really need to work on and get out there, because that'll allow a lot more workers and companies to want to be out in the county areas. Also, some program I've talked to some of the city commission even thinking about is we do stuff like abatements for companies that come in, but for people to remodel houses, that raises the value and raises taxes. Maybe we can come up with a program as an incentive where if you do that remodel, we keep the taxes at that base rate, at least for a certain amount of time, sort of help with that, affordable housing. Thank you.
And for our last question, Greg, I will start with you. As a county commissioner, how will you work to promote a positive climate for public input, collaborative efforts, and inclusive practices so that all members of the community feel represented by you?
One of the things, as you know, the county has been broadcasting their meetings, but there needs to be systems set up where people can call in, or not call in, but online or some way address issues through that way too. Other ways, I think not necessarily moving all the meetings, but maybe once or every month or every other month have an evening meeting, especially when big issues come up, like the ones that came up this year, the purchase of the church next door, some things like that a lot of people are interested in. Have evening meetings so the people, there's more public input. They're able to come to those meetings easier. And then kept things one thing. If I'm in office, I plan on keeping office hours during the week. I'll have them published for people. I'll try to do different times of the day, different days of the week, so people can try to come in and talk to me. And I've had good luck. People seem to be open to talking to me. I've had people, my number's been out there. People call me up already asking questions about the county, and I'm open to talk to anyone.
Thank you. John Mata.
I agree with everything that Greg said. We've been actually asked this question a lot, and a lot of us are, in agreement with the things of being down at the county offices and being available to people. As Greg said, actually going out and talking to people. When I was on the city commission, I often, if someone would just call me up, I would just go meet with them. I'd take a look at whatever the issue was, and I plan on doing the same thing in the county commission. And the fact that I'm retired now actually gives me more time to do that. I think the new public relations person that the county has got, we need to really make that a long-term thing and figure it into the overall organization, because social media is such a big thing nowadays, and make sure that everyone knows what the county is doing. That's the one thing in walking door to door I hear a lot is, well, what are they doing down at the county? So I think we need to make a good way to get that information out there. What Greg mentioned before also about the advisory boards is making sure that we get out there and get as many applicants as possible, because people don't know that they exist or don't know when they come up or how they can get on them. And I think that's going to get more of the input in there. I think, unfortunately, sometimes before when people came to the county commission, they may have given comments, but because it was a business meeting, they gave the comment, never gave any feedback. I think it's incumbent upon us, if we do have people come down to meetings or hold town halls, we actually give them some feedback on what they say. And maybe we're not going to take action, but at least let them know that and let them know why.
Thank you. Catherine Foki.
Yes, one of the reasons that I ran for this position is because of the way the county commissioners conduct their business in meetings and in person. One of the things I found out one day, I was calling my county commissioner. I was interested in an issue, and I found out that they had no office hours. They hadn't had office hours for like 20 years. And so one of the first things I'm going to do is set office hours. Be available, have town halls. I want to continue going out to meet people. I've learned so much going door to door, meeting people and talking to people, getting ideas from them. I always say, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? Rather than me telling them, this is what's going on. And one of the bigger problems in the commission meetings themselves is that there's a lot of dead space in the meetings. That's the time between when the agenda item is discussed, which maybe takes 5 minutes, and they've allocated 15 minutes. So you've got that dead space of like another 10 minutes in there where the commissioners just sit around and shoot the bull or whatever, or get up and get coffee or whatever they do. This needs to stop. And that could be handled by having a cameraman in or online and watching what's going on, stopping that time period so people at home watching don't sit and get distracted and miss out on most of the meetings. That's happened to me at home. So I plan to do that, and also move meetings to other areas in the county and at K-State. So.
Thank you. Those were all of our questions. So now it's time for closing statements, and continuing the rotation, I will start with John Mata first.
Okay. Again, I went through things at the beginning about my 3 priorities and my experience. I think the thing I want to emphasize is that experience. It's one thing to say that you understand how to work a large budget. It's another thing to do it. It's another thing to have hundreds or thousands of people working for you. It's another thing to do it. It's also one of the things that you realize you have to do it through other people. And that's the experience that I have. Also, being on the city commission, I know how that operation works. And one of the things I want to get done is a higher level of cooperation between Riley County and Manhattan, as well as Riley County and Pottawatomie County and Geary County, because I really think long-term, we have to see where we can get rid of that duplication. If we're going to get those efficiencies, if we're going to keep taxes down, we can't have everyone doing their own thing. I'm not for consolidated government, but is there functions, is there facilities, is there's agreements we can make so that everyone can benefit from the situation. And as I mentioned before, the economic development programs, I've talked to a number of people that are very knowledgeable in town. They're very excited about getting something like that going on the county level, which really hasn't been, pushed to a great extent before. Again, thank all of you for coming. I want to give my, best to Fanny. And it's unfortunate she couldn't be with us today because she's worked really hard on her campaign. And everyone, remember to get out and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Catherine Foki.
Yes, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and K-Man Radio for sponsoring this forum. And I would especially like to thank listeners for taking their time this Sunday afternoon, and especially with the delays that have happened here, taking their time to be involved in local elections. Local leadership is so important to all of us, especially in this time of uncertainty and disruption in our daily lives. Your elected representatives should be approachable and willing to discuss the things that really matter to all of us. For many years, I've raised my daughter, run a business, which by the way is very different than running a corporation. And I've been your neighbor, working in the community to help this make a better place to live in for everyone. And during my time here, there's not been one county commissioner who has personally reached out to me or come to my door to get my opinion or ideas. So it's been apparent to me that communication and transparency is not important to our elected county leadership. This needs to change. That is why I'm running to be your county commissioner. In the past several months, I've talked to over 1,500 voters at their doors and plan to meet many more before the election day. Reaching out to independents, Democrats, and Republicans has given me a really broad perspective on how people view the current commission. And it's not a pretty picture. From not having any idea on what's going on to embarrassment to wanting more integrity and transparency, everyone wants a change in the direction of our local government. When you put your trust in me as your new county commissioner, I'm committed to having open and respectful discussions, to be available, transparent, and accountable for my actions. I will undertake changes in the meeting structure that so more people can participate, and I ask for your guidance and input on these and other important issues. I believe with all my heart that we need to focus on the future, not going back to the past. And that is where there's hope and change. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Greg McKinley.
I also want to thank the league for allowing us to have this forum to discuss, to talk to people. I've been encouraged by a number of people who've contacted me to support my campaign since I started. Since deciding to run last year, I've been reviewing the minutes of each meeting from last year through this year. Started attending meetings earlier in the year. Obviously, they were stopped. Since the restrictions were lifted, I've been attending most of the meetings in person. Like being there in person gives a better feel for how the meeting and how it runs. And through this process, I'm learning who the department heads are, what their functions are, which departments have covered different areas of the county. By doing this, I'm hoping to have a better understanding of the whole process and be better prepared to jump into the job next year. Won't even wait till next year. If I'm elected, I'm going to start trying to see with county, some of the department heads before then, just start familiarizing myself with the county, how it runs. I've lived in Manhattan and North County, and they each face different challenges, but they all pay taxes and deserve to have their needs addressed. The business side of a commissioner's job is important, but so is connecting with the county residents. I want to hear everyone's concerns on the issues. We may not always agree, but I welcome a civil discussion. And I'd appreciate your vote, either advance voting, mail in, or on November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all the Riley County Commission candidates, Greg McKinley, John Mata, and Catherine Foki, for answering our questions and sharing their views. We will now take a short break for station identification and to set up for the next segment featuring candidates for Kansas House Districts 51, 64, 66, and 67. Welcome back to the League of Women Voters Candidates Forum. My name is Marissa Larson and I am the League's Candidate Forum moderator. This segment is devoted to candidates running for Kansas House Districts 51, 64, 66, and 67. The candidate for House District 51 is Republican Ron Highland. Candidates for House District 64 are Susie Carlson, Republican, and Jim Battauer, Democrat. The candidate for House District 66 is Sydney Carlin, Democrat. And the candidates for House District 67 are Cheryl Arthur, Democrat, and Mike Dodson, Republican. As before, we will begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. And after opening statements, I will ask at least 4 questions, 2 from the league and 2 or 3 submitted in advance by committee member or by the audience. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to answer these questions. And then the segment will conclude with each candidate giving a 2-minute closing statement. So for opening statements, let's start in the order of the districts numerically. So we will start with Representative Ron Highland from District 51.
Thank you. Thank you for holding this forum so that the audience can get more familiar with the candidates. Brief introduction. I represent District 51, which essentially runs from Tuttle Creek Dam down to just north of Emporia. So all are part of 5 counties to include Riley County. The big issues for the next 2 years will be, number 1 will be the budget. If you've been following it at all, we have been seeing an increase in revenues, and I am wondering if that is real or if it's inflated because of all the federal monies that have been coming into the state. We will see after the first of the year when the money stops. It'll be interesting to see what happens. And I'm wondering if the bottom's going to fall out next year. Redistricting will be the other big issue. And you've been hearing more and more about that lately. But what happens, it's like a bill. We in the legislature, both Senate and the House, we will come up with our version of what we think redistricting should be. And that will be forwarded to the governor for signature. If she vetoes that, then we may be in a situation like we were 10 years ago, where the courts will have to decide. I hope that does not happen. So with that, that's my brief introduction.
Thank you. Now on to House District 64 candidates. Susie Carlson.
Okay, sorry, I had a hard time getting it to unmute, but my name is Susie Carlson. I am the representative for House District 64. That includes all of Clay County and the very western part of Riley County, which extends from around the airport clear up through the town of Randolph. I've enjoyed my first term in the House and look forward to returning. Last year was a bit disappointing because we had to leave due to the COVID early. And we had a lot of projects and a lot of good bills that we wanted to carry through with, and we were unable to because we were sent home early. I think this next session is going to be very important to have experience going on to this coming session. It's been a tough year, and I think there's going to be a lot of things that we're going to have to work through in the coming session. And I was on the Children and Seniors Committee, the Social Services Budget Committee, and also on the Financial Institution and Pensions. And then this summer, I have been appointed to an interim committee for foster care oversight, which I'll be attending on Tuesday and Wednesday in Topeka this next week, which is a very important meeting. We will listen to more testimony on Tuesday, and then we will have to make our recommendations for foster care in the next day. So I feel very strongly about the issues. I feel very strongly about our smaller towns, our rural health, our rural broadband, and look forward to coming back and fighting hard to ensure that everyone is taken care of in all of those places. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Vathar.
First, I want to thank the sponsors for hosting this event, so voters can hear those from wanting to represent them in Topeka. My name is Jim Vadauer, and I'm running for the 64th District House seat. I am a 4th-generation Kansas farmer and small business owner. I am running to be a I'm running to be a voice for farmers, livestock producers, and workers in the state. We need a representative focused on their needs, not just those of corporate interest or demands of party leadership. I will be fighting every day for Medicaid expansion, transparent government, fiscal responsibility, and fixing our state agencies. Too many years saw political games with roads and school funding and left the Department of Children and Families underfunded and understaffed. During the COVID pandemic that harmed people's lives and wallets, we had a legislature that took a break, allowing unilateral executive control and refused an up and down vote on Medicaid expansion. When they returned, they bickered and complained. They forced through votes and midnight sessions with bills written at 3 a.m., rammed through on party lines. This is not how Kansans should be treated. I will be working for common sense, bipartisan solutions to problems in the state. We need to be focused on the needs of people, not political driven experiments and endless talking. I hope this hour will be a real discussion for the future of Kansas, its roads, schools, economy, and farms. We need real ideas for economic growth. The 64th district needs an advocate. And I hope November the people will vote for me for the next.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, and so next we will go to House District 66 candidate, Sydney Carlin. Oh, Sydney, unmute, please.
Darn it. I want to thank you for your patience today. It's been an exhausting day for you, I'm sure. And thank the community for listening in to this every election year. The league, the AAUW, the Chamber of Commerce, and the radio station go together to produce this forum, and I really appreciate it. I have roughly half of Manhattan and a little piece of rural Potawatomi County. And I broke into political science as an activist on a local issue. I served on the city commission from 93 to 97, one term as mayor. Then I finished my degree at K-State and ran for the House of Representatives in 2002. I've served 9 terms in the Kansas House. I serve on House Appropriations Committee, where we distribute the budget money and make cuts when necessary. We set priorities based on what we hear from our committee work and what we hear from the public. I am the ranking member on the House Ag and Natural Resources Budget Committee, which reviews 14 agency budgets and supports or cuts those budgets as they are presented to us. Though some of the budgets we do are KDHE Environment, Department of Commerce, Department of Agriculture, Department of Water, credit unions, banking, cosmetology, barbering, and wildlife and parks, to just name a few. I also am the ranking member on the House Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee, where we deal with water issues and crop issues and farming issues around the state. And I appreciate your attention and your input on these issues. I try to communicate everything through newsletters to the public so they can come and present to our committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will go to candidates for House District 67. Mike Dotson, I will let you go first.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the League of Women Voters and also appreciate K-Man and appreciate all those who are interested in the political issues for listening to us today. My model for this really is my mom and dad. They gave community service as long as I can remember while I was growing up. I was in the Army for 37 years, and obviously in the Army, you don't get a chance for very much community service due to the number of moves you have. But once I had retired from the Army and then retired from Bechtel Corporation, I came back to Manhattan and was asked if I was willing to serve. I was fortunate enough to be elected to the commission, and then served 1 year as mayor. Also was the head of the law board while I was serving. Some of the things that I believe in that I think are essential for Kansas right now, probably three things are on my top of mind. One is that we've got to expand the number of businesses we have in Kansas. That does two things. It helps keep our young people here. It also helps reduce the tax burden by bringing in additional revenue to the state. Also think we've got a lot of work to do to preserve the education. We have a terrific reputation in the state of Kansas for offering high quality education. Additionally, I would say that we've got to make sure that all of our municipalities, not just our state, are prepared for emergencies. This pandemic was a little bit different, but nonetheless, we've got to stockpile as much of those common items as we possibly can. I would say that for everyone listening, I'm an optimist. I'm also look forward. I'm a good planner, but I'm also a realist. I want to make sure that while I keep the goals in mind, we do those kinds of things that are realistic to get us forward. Look forward to, if fortunate enough to be elected, look forward to reaching.
Thank you, Mike Dodson. Cheryl Arthur, your 2-minute opening statement, please.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Arthur, and I'm running for the House of Representatives for District 67. A little bit about myself. My hometown is Springfield, Missouri, but I've lived in Kansas since 1997, and I've lived in Manhattan since 2002. I'm a retired high school teacher, coach, and administrator, so I have pretty good problem-solving skills. I also have a low tolerance for the lack of civility and kindness that I'm seeing in politics at all levels of government. I really think we need to start being civil and show some kindness to each other so that we can work together to move Kansas forward. As a teacher and administrator on a daily basis, I helped families and their kids to learn and to grow in a safe and healthy environment. There are a lot of issues facing Kansas legislature right now, but providing a safe and healthy environment for economic growth really needs to be our #1 priority. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to start with our first question, and I'm going to ask the questions. We'll always rotate who has to go first. So this first question, I'm going to start with Susie Carlson. And the question is, does Kansas need Medicare expansion? If no, why not? And if yes, why?
Kansas definitely needs Medicaid expansion. There's so many people that are in the middle, and a lot of people think that Medicaid expansion is just for the people that don't want to work, and that's so not true. Medicaid expansion is for the working poor. It is to cover people and families that have two parents that are working, maybe not high paid jobs, and they've got 2 children. They're not in the poverty level, so they don't qualify for different medical plans, but they don't make enough money to be able to afford medical insurance. I think it's tremendously important. It will bring revenue into our state. Plus, the smaller hospitals are not able to make it. They're closing, and that doesn't help any of our communities or our rural revitalization plans. We absolutely need the Medicaid expansion to bring dollars into Kansas and to help keep our people and our children and our elderly covered so that they can all receive the treatment that everyone should have and that they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim.
A vote for Jim Vatter is a vote for Medicaid expansion. Others have flipped and flopped on this issue, but on day one, I will introduce a bill introducing the bipartisan Denning-Kelly plan. It will help over 130,000 low-income working Kansas gain coverage, including hundreds in the 64th district. These are individuals left in the ACA coverage gap. It means, and it is mean, unchristian to deny working Kansans health care. It will help our rural hospitals remain open. 6 rural hospitals have closed in Kansas, directly tied to the lack of expansion. Clay Center hospitals must raise hundreds of thousands of dollars each year for charity care, which will end when expansion passes. Administrators' focus will be on healthcare, not fundraising. It will provide mental health relief for people fearing medical bankruptcies. In 2019, a Kansas State professor released his studies on expansion being an economic and job multiplier. Kansas taxpayers have sent $4 billion to DC without nothing to show for it. Look up your representatives' records. See if their votes match their words.
Okay, thank you, Jim. That was time. Thank you. Sydney Carlin.
Yeah, Kansas is an island in the middle of the United States. Every state around us has passed Medicaid reform, Medicaid expansion. Missouri, Oklahoma, and Nebraska all put it to a public referendum. I'm not sure if Colorado got it that way, but I do know they have public referendum. We do not have that in Kansas. And so the people have to work through legislators to get their bills passed. And that can work as long as a legislator will support that community and vote the way the community wants them to. The public is very supportive of Medicaid expansion. And $4.2 billion is sitting in Washington, D.C. that should be in Kansas hands. I was aghast when I was at a conference, national conference, when I got the news that our governor in 2010, Brownback, had sent the check back to the federal government and refused the money. Then he turned around and made it so that we had to vote it in as a legislature or it wouldn't pass. So that's why it's in the legislators' hands. If it wasn't for that action and his 97 people that he brought in with him, we wouldn't be so out of balance. There's 262,000 uninsured Kansans right now, and 43,000 of those are children. And our district, District 1, has almost 6% uninsured children, and we are the highest in the state.
Thank you. Mike Dodson.
Yeah, when you look around today, I know my time on the commission and as mayor, we've got a lot of people who are suffering. As Sydney said, as you look around the nation, we're one of the few that hasn't passed this. We, as Kansans, send over $8 billion a year in our tax money up to Washington. We have foregone over $4 billion that could have gone to help these people who are in dire need of health care, the people that kind of fall in this gap. Also, if you talk to our local hospital, Bob Koppel will tell you that not only do we have to keep this hospital viable, but the hospitals that they support, most of the rural hospitals around us also get support from our hospital here. So this goes to help those in greatest need. I would also say that for those who think that the feds are going to pull the money, that almost never happens, particularly on something that is important to the health of all Americans. So the Kansas budget's in a difficult position, and we need to get all the help we can.
Thank you. Cheryl Arthur.
Thank you. Wow. So much has been said and all of it true. It's hard to come up with something to add to that other than to say that for me, Medicaid expansion is a no-brainer. And in fact, if we don't pass this, it is literally mean-spirited because the money is there. and we need to bring it to Kansas. If it doesn't go to Kansas, it's going to someplace else. And we might as well support our citizens who are in that unfortunate gap that they make too much money, which is hard to believe, that they can't afford health care, and for those who simply cannot cover it themselves. As for the impact on rural hospitals, 26% of Kansans live in rural districts, and yet less than 10% of doctors practice medicine in rural districts. We need to look at a way to incentivize through early intervention in terms of helping them with the healthcare, their schooling. We need to get kids involved early on in mentoring and internship programs, but our rural health districts need some help. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ron Highland.
Just so everybody understands, this is not a big kumbaya moment. I voted against and will continue to vote against until there is more substantial data in this area. If we're honest with the people of Kansas, the amount that this will cost them is unbelievable at this point. And then we have to add to that what is going to happen next year when the federal money stops coming in and we actually see the effect of this, what the COVID crisis has done in our state. Financially, it's not something I can support right now. There is not enough evidence, both financially and the need. We can do many things in our state. We need to get off and take care of some of those things. Our KDHE and other groups within the state need to start working on this dutifully and carefully and do a good job. Right now, it's the money situation, and bad management cannot be covered up with more money. So with that, I will end.
Okay, thank you. For our second question, I will start with Jim Battauer to answer first, and then we'll go through the rotation. Our society is being polarized by uncivil speech. How will you model and promote constructive, inclusive politics in your work with colleagues and the public?
2020 saw COVID, but we also saw a rise in racial and motivation killings and protests. 90 seconds is not near enough time for political response, but the Capitol building has two amazing murals, one for John Brown and one for Brown versus Board of Education decision. Many talk about them, but then failed to support an anti-discrimination bill. I will work to pass laws that end discrimination in our workplace, in our housing, in our voting rights, and for criminal justice reform. I am a father of a gay child, and I am an uncle of multiracial nephews. My friends have multiracial children and grandchildren. I understand these issues involved with discrimination. It is not acceptable. When my hometown was vandalized with white supremacy, ideology and symbols, I did not stand back. I did not just talk. My family and I were among the first to show up and help friends and neighbors with total strangers scrub the harmful graffiti from the buildings. I will be an elected official, ready to roll up my sleeves and get ready to work, not just talk and do nothing.
Thank you. Sydney Carlin.
Thank you. Civility is, it took a turn in 2010. I had been in the House for 6 years, and when I walked in the building with the new crowd that was elected in 2010, it just didn't feel the same. There was a lot of arrogance and a lot of proud indignancy, I would say. This year, starting in January, we had a caucus that we came together and actually met and had dinners together and talked and had presentations on civility, the old methods of bringing everybody to the front to talk about their issues with each other. It actually brought together about 40 to 50 people out of the 165. A lot of people are civil that didn't, in a routine way and did not feel they needed to come. And some others came just to see who was there. And some others really work hard at getting along with each other in the Capitol. Time's going fast. I'm really proud of my record in Topeka, and I would not have been able to accomplish some very exciting bills that have passed had it not been for my ability to get in and work with everyone in the room. On the False Claims Against the State Act, which took 5 years to get through, I met with every member of the Senate and every member of the House to explain my concerns and what the bill would do. I've passed many bills in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Mike Dodson.
Yeah, thanks. Well, for 37 years in the Army, I found it important to be as inclusive as possible. You know, the Army is built on teamwork, and if you can't bring people together, you're left to make decisions by yourself, and that's never a smart thing to do. My ability, I think, was evident to most folks when they watched the City Commission and my time as mayor. We tried to practice civility up there on the dais and include as many people as we could, allow people to be heard. I think the recent issue, we have to have an idea of what the goals are for what people would like to see us do. Also have to have some objectives. You know, not much gets done if you just run around yelling. You've got to have an agenda. You've got to know where to look, such as Kansas statutes and your municipal ordinances. Not much will get done without the change happening at those levels. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Arthur.
Thank you. As I said in my opening statement, one of the things that has been a consistent message in all of the canvassing that I've been out doing, trying to talk to as many people in the district as I can, there have been, I could count on less than one hand the number of times that people have been rude or, just rude when I've been out canvassing. And so what that tells me is that overwhelmingly, even though I was talking to Republicans, unaffiliates, Democrats who vote and Democrats who don't vote, they were all civil and they wanted to listen and they wanted to learn and tell me what their issues were in the state of Kansas. And I guess to me that says that we really do, I know it's an easy word to just say, but we really do need to learn to work together, and Kansans can do that. We can, and we must. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Highland.
Thank you. And for me, it's fairly simple. I live my life according to the teachings that are taught in the Bible. And from that, I run my committee the same way. I'm chairman of the Ag Committee and Rules and Regs. And I listen to everyone. Representative Carlin is the ranking member on that committee. And we get along fine. And I'm inclusive to everybody in the committee. And when we're running bills across the floor, it's a civil affair. In fact, if you come down front and you are uncivil or you are angry, you will have lost the battle at that point. It does not work. It will not work. And I think everybody at the Capitol understands that. There may be a few outliers that do not, and they will remain outliers. They will not be able to get anything done. Now, as far as out in the public, I've had no problems. Maybe one or two people that were rude, as the previous speaker said, but that's part of this business. It's getting worse, and we understand that. And we are all hoping for the day when it gets better. But live your life the best you can and treat everybody as equals. And it seems to work out pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you. Susie Carlson.
Thank you. Before going into the legislature, I was a municipal judge for 21 years. It was important to be impartial. It was important to listen to both sides and then try and make a decision. And the civil discourse was so important. And it always amazed me how you could have two attorneys arguing different sides and it would get pretty heated. But when court was adjourned and they walked out, they're walking out talking about when they were going to play golf next. They fought for different sides, they believed different things, but they didn't hold that against each other. And I think that's how we need to be. There's not one side, one political party, one anything that can be 100% right all the time. And if we don't have the ability to listen to everyone and make sure that maybe their ideas are better or that we can blend them together, then I just think it's so important. There was a great book called Tip and the Gipper. It was about Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. It's talked about when politics worked. They fought on the House floor and then they had cigars together that night. People can do that. We can be friends. We don't have to be hostile. Nothing can get done in a hostile environment. So I have many friends that are Democrat, and I hope they feel the same way. Thank you.
Thank you. On to our next question, and Sydney Carlin, you will get to field this one first. With regard to the pandemic, do you agree with Governor Kelly's decisions and or those of the Kansas Legislative Coordinating Council? Why or why not?
It's been an extremely challenging experience for any governor in any state. I think our governor has done a fantastic job. I do agree with what she has done, and I do agree with the reasons that she has decided to do what she's done. The Legislative Council, I think, were a little more afraid than they needed to be, but in order to work with them, the governor has conceded a lot of issues that they wanted. So what we have now is we have an extension of the emergency powers that was decided to till January of 21, which is coming right up. And at that point, then we're going to look at the law again. We will be back in session. Some wanted to take more power away from the governor already. And the reason they didn't in the last executive session with them, was because the courts had pointed out that they were going to be forced to let people out of jail without their trials and criminals that we, were holding if we didn't have a successful extension of her powers to extend those speedy court dates out. And that was the only reason that she was able to continue with the powers she has. Someone has to run the state.
Thank you. Mike Dodson.
Yeah, thank you. We were all in this together when we first started. So there's a lot of things we didn't know. But, you have to give credit for the governor who stepped up to do what she thought was best. Unfortunately, most of the states were basically on their own. When you hunted around for PPE, when you tried to find ventilators, all of those kinds of things, there was not much help coming. And I think overall, the state's done a really good job at finding production inside the state, finding avenues to get supplies in, using things like the biolab here in Manhattan to help produce some of these materials. But the hindsight now is 2020. So what we may know going forward will really serve us better. And that is that in many cases, we could probably do masking and still keep our businesses open with the possible exception of bars where people just don't pay very good attention. I think going forward, as Sydney has commented on, one of the things we have to do is differentiate between the kinds of emergencies that come about as a result of a tornado and these longer lasting things where there's probably a role for more participation in the legislature. The problem there, of course, is the legislature is not in session all the time. So a whole mechanism has to be created to help the governor. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheryl Arthur.
Okay, sorry. I agree with both what Sydney and my opponent, Mr. Dobson, are saying. Governor Kelly and Dr. Norman did a tremendous job, especially early on when there was almost no guidance from the federal level. I do appreciate that her focus has been on science and health and safety of all of the citizens of Kansas, and yet she allowed local entities to do what was best based on the data in their localities. And that has shown to be pretty effective, although right now we're still having hotspots in schools, especially universities, nursing homes, and correctional facilities. Those are still key areas that need the state's guidance to keep the infection down. But I think that the governor and Kelly and Dr. Norman did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Highland.
Thank you. This situation, which I think of this as being a legislator and three branches of government. And I think a lot of the decisions that have been made should have been made with the advice and consent and use of all the minds we have in the legislature. We should have been called back in. We should have dealt with this as a legislature and the executive office together. There's information I have requested and they would not give to me. So I'm a little bit put off by what has happened. I do like the idea that it was turned over to the local counties and municipalities to decide how severe they need to be put their situation into. And it's been mentioned before, the actual law that is dictating this right now needs to be reworked, because whether it's a short-term or a long-term emergency, and that is ongoing right now. There is a special judiciary committee working on that. At some point, we will have to deal with this in a different way. We are looking at the veterinary pandemic laws and outbreaks right now because that's kind of the model that we're looking at for advice in the future. And at some point, we will come to an agreement and deal with it as a group, as a legislature and the executive branch. Thank you.
Thank you. Susie Carlson.
Thank you. There's no manual on how to deal with a pandemic. This has been new to everyone. I do not feel like our governor has done a poor job. How do you know? I mean, it's like walking through a new fallen snow. There was nothing to follow. All you could do is leave your footprints. And as far as the businesses that were closed, I do feel like some of that was not necessary, but we didn't know. You have to give credit for people doing what they feel is best on what knowledge that they are given. And there may be a better way to do some of these things, but that's what we have to look at going forward, is how to handle these things. I do feel like it shouldn't be up to just one person to make the decisions. It does take more than that. And that's going to be talked about in the future, how we're going to do these things and how it's going to be planned. But I feel happy too that the local people had better chances to decide their things. But overall, I do not feel like the governor did a poor job. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Bethar.
The Kansas response to COVID has been mediocre. The legislature chose to recess, allowing the governor sole control of the economic and health system of the state, then returned and complained about actions done in their absence. During a crisis, I believe people would have preferred elected officials work, not take a break. I would have stayed and worked for compromise instead of leaving town. Facts and science are the only way out of this problem. More information, not less. The legislature passed laws limiting the role of contact tracing. I would have voted against this policy. It concerns me for the next outbreak. At last year's Ag Summit, there was a discussion about livestock outbreak exercises. Yet this year, there were politically driven games on the Kansas Emergency Management Act. Will there be more if a livestock outbreak occurs? Will farmers be forced to suffer while their herds die? Do you want to play games if there was an outbreak of African swine flu? Or are we going to be slow in limiting transmissions and diseases from farm to farm? We need to be ready to come together, listen, and share information and facts. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question, Mike Dodson, you will get to field this one first. As Kansas navigates the financial strains caused by the pandemic, there may be a need to address the possible shortfall. What incentives, taxes, or cuts would you favor to regain a sustainable economy?
Yeah, the first priority for me, as I stated in my opening remarks, is to try to bring new business into Kansas. I think this is under the theory of a rising tide raises all boats. If we had a business savvy approach to this and brought in new business, particularly those with that could pay high wages for high technical skills, we could retain the folks that are unfortunately fleeing Kansas. We could build up our revenue, and hopefully we could reduce the amount of property tax that's exacted across all of our municipalities. You know, the 1.25 that came from the CARES Act, I think going back to the last question, I think they've done a great job in administering that and getting the help out to the communities, the counties. The counties have done, at least in Riley County, have done a great job in finding out what the priorities are and where that money should go. So that's taken some of the strain off. We're hopeful that a little bit more will be coming from the federal government, whether it's 1.8 or 2.2. And when it comes down to Kansas, hopefully that will give us a little bit of breathing room for at least the next year. But I agree that we've got to do something to make sure our expenses and our revenue are prioritized. Thanks.
Thank you. Cheryl Arthur.
Hi. I think I disagree that we need to go back to this policy of trying to bring new business, and that to me that's sounding a lot like the old Brownback thing. And we saw the devastation that the Brownback policies brought onto Kansas. In fact, we're still experiencing the devastation of those. I think we need to be a little more creative in Kansas in what we're doing. We've tried other things. They don't work. The horse is dead. Get off. Let's try something like maybe putting the tax bracket for the higher income back up to where it was pre-Brownback era. To me, that's an easy fix. There are also other sources of revenue that we could look to alleviate some of the shortfall. But I don't agree that we should go back to previous theories that we've tried that didn't work. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron Highland.
Thank you. This is a very, very complicated topic. I sit on the Commerce Committee as well, and in there we've had the Department of Commerce come in and explain to us, and we are supportive of new businesses moving into our state. However, we are requiring now that they do calculations on the return on the investment, the ROI. In the past, there have been none done. There's a lot of money been wasted in those programs, and we want to get a better handle on them. They disagreed with us. They fought us on that. but we prevailed. And as a legislator, we have to do more of that in prevailing and asking for transparency and accountability. Now, as far as taxes, I will not support a tax increase. I have always wanted to support lowering the taxes. I am getting inundated with complaints about property taxes. They are too high, and we need to, that's something the state legislature really doesn't have any control over. That is a local issue. So you need to be talking to the county commissioners and the cities who are taxing. So that's beyond our scope, and we try to stay out of that. At some point, we may have to get involved. There's a good future in our state, but we have to work on value-added companies coming in. We have products we're producing, we're sending them out of the state where they are then produced into a value-added product. We need to get more involved in our own state. Thank you.
Thank you. Susie Carlson.
Thank you. There will be shortfalls, but fortunately, the more recent numbers show that they're not as bad as maybe predicted earlier this summer. And yes, those are things we're going to have to deal with. I am definitely against any increase in taxes. We all need to get together and trim where we can. Every committee that meets this coming session is going to have to look at what they can do and where they can trim our budgets. And then they'll present it on the floor, and everyone will vote on it. I don't believe there's anyone, Republican or Democrat, that wants to see an increase in taxes. We are there because we care about our people, we care about our districts, and we want to see them grow and thrive. New businesses coming into our state, I think, is one way that it really can help, and to get businesses opened back up and back on their feet to where they are producing and being able to make more in sales tax and things like that. But as far as an increase, I am firmly against any tax increases whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Bethauer.
I want to make sure our state is prepared for future times of growth and slowdown. I was embarrassed this year when emergencies hit. The federal government tried to help people, but Kansas were not able to handle these changes. When businesses were closed, many Kansans lost their jobs through no fault of their own. The unemployment system was so outdated it could not handle the flood of claims and new changes. The legislature returned from a self-declared break with outrage on the failure of the labor secretary and her department for not handling unemployment claims fast enough. But where were the bills to upgrade outdated computer systems? We cannot starve resources for necessary programs and wonder why they fail when needed. I also care about rural development. The 64th district has 2 towns that have been largely abandoned by their county when it comes to emergency medical supplies. How do we expect these towns to continue or grow when people do not know if ambulances will come when requested? Without basic service, we will never be able to retain nor attract people to our areas. This is unacceptable. We must encourage new business to invest in our state, but we need oversight. With these incentives, a clawback provision in programs to ensure taxpayers get what they pay for. Thank you.
Thank you. Sydney Carlin.
Thank you. I serve on the Appropriations Committee, and we do accept the governor's budget every year, and then we start to work to create our own budget as we compare our thoughts to what she is recommending. That's kind of the process. The Spark funds have come into the state, and they've helped us with the communities, and the state investment in economic development has resulted in several new communities receiving new businesses in the last just 2 to 4 weeks. There's been a litany of new businesses. I don't have a list in front of me. I wouldn't have time anyway. But the $110 million invested in 2 new facilities, each facility $110 million in Wichita and Kansas City was announced yesterday by Amazon and this governor. And that's 1,000 jobs of at least $15 a piece. We also have jobs in Salina at the pizza factory. We have modern manufacturing with 1,100 jobs in Kansas City, Wyandotte County. And the energy business is growing in Kansas. We're the top energy creator in the United States. In April, they reduced our consensus revenue estimate so that we would rebudget the funds and come in with less expenses. Sorry.
Thank you, Sydney. Okay, on to our last question. And Cheryl Arthur, I will let you field this one first. The legislature will be charged with drawing new legislative districts during the second year after the census. Would you vote in favor of an amendment creating an impartial committee to draw the new legislative districts? Why or why not?
Yes, definitely. We need transparency. Susan Wagle said just in the last few days that we needed to get out and vote so that Republicans could gerrymander the districts. The districts have been gerrymandered enough. We've lost, oh geez, I had the numbers and I can't find them right now. Anyway, in 2000, we had 10 Democrats and 30 Republicans in the Senate. We had sort of an equivalent kind of number in the House, and now we're down to 8 Democrats in the Senate and 32 Republicans. That's just one example of the kind of gerrymandering that's been done. And the result of that is that we have one answer in the legislature. That's it. We're become a one-party system instead of working together, coming across the aisle and working together with creative ideas with all of the legislatures. We need to not gerrymander, and yeah, that's my issue there. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Ron Highland.
Thank you. A controversial issue, but no, I cannot support it as what has been suggested as an independent committee to come up. We have a system and it's worked for many, many, many years. We're going to stick with it. We have a situation where the legislature, where we all work together, we come up with a bill in both the House and the Senate, and then we send it to each other. And then if passed by both chambers, then it goes to the governor for signature, and she has the right to veto. What happened in 2010 and 11 was that the legislatures could not come up with an agreement on the seating and the redistricting, the drawing of the lines. And it ended up going to the courts at that point, and the courts drew the lines. So if there's any complaint about the redistricting this time around, you have to talk to the courts. It's a legislative job to take care of redistricting, and that's where I think it should stay. And a committee would be something that would be outside of the realm of what is within the prerogative and the laws of our state. Thank you.
Thank you. Susie Carlson.
Thank you. I agree with Representative Highland. There is a system and the legislature vote on it. You've put us there. You have voted us to be your representatives. And that's what we're there to do. And when we all have to vote on that, hopefully we're voting in the best interest of the people we represent. When we can't agree, and that's happened several times, not just over redistricting, but then when it goes to the courts, and none of us like to see that happen with lots of different things, but I think we have to trust the courts to be fair, and that's what they have done. Redistricting is a tough thing. But we were also asked some questions on that earlier, how we felt about it. I believe that the present system does work, and votes are votes, and things are working well, and we need to keep it the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Bethauer.
I think Kansas needs an independent bipartisan commission to look at the district boundaries. If you look at our current map, you can see proof of what President or Senate President Wagle recently said about gerrymandering districts to keep certain parties in power. Elections should be about ideas, not which party has cemented larger numbers. I am fortunate I have Republican, Democrat, and independent supporters, but we must make sure future maps are drawn without regard to party and without attempting to dilute minority group or voting blocks. Thank you.
Thank you. Sydney Carlin.
I think, I wish I didn't have to support a special committee. I wish the legislature would be back to the good old days and really try to work it out. But the fact that one party has been in control in Kansas for so many, many years, since 1932, we haven't had a Democratic senator. It makes me realize that it's a built process, and we tend to live in communities where we work with each other and get along with each other and share values, and those communities become like-minded in politics as well. I do support the committee. The governor supports the committee. And after we let the courts settle the boundaries before, we did do a little better. I have a better district than I did before. I have a more even district. Mine was fairly equal in people, but it was not equal in income. So I think there are lots of criteria that need to be established. And I think having an appointed committee where, was it bipartisan, I assume we have to write legislation for this, but it would say that the Speaker of the House and the governor and Speaker or the leader of the Senate would also get to make appointments to this committee. And it would be a balanced committee of people with experience with sociological issues. So I do support that.
Thank you. Mike Dotson.
Having not served at the state level, my inclination is along the same lines as Ron Highlands. We have our legislature who is charged with the responsibility to do this. And the only thing that I would insist on, in addition to what their responsibilities are, is to make sure that we have sufficient insight into what's going on. I mean, this is all about transparency. All too often what happens is something comes out and nobody knows why. And when you look at the district boundaries now, you wonder why they're drawn that way, because they're certainly not square. So, I mean, I think we have to continue to do this, but continue to hold our legislators responsible for doing this in the correct way. And I think in many states and at the federal level, we've had this problem that their agreement cannot be reached, and then we send it up to the courts to decide. And I don't think anybody likes that, but I think that's the system we've got. We may have to fix some things, but we ought to make it work. Thanks.
Thank you. Those were all of our questions. So now on to closing statements. And Ron Highland, I will let you go first.
Thank you, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and K-Man for sponsoring this event. It has been enlightening, and hopefully the audience will find it useful for their decision making. What we have to understand is we have a new legislature, a new session coming up, both in the Senate and the House. And we've had our committee assignments in the past, but we don't know where we're going to be assigned come January. Hopefully we'll be on some of the same committees, but we never know. The Speaker and the President of the Senate assign all the committee assignments. So, but my plans are, if I remain active in the Ag Committee, I will work hard. And one of the big areas in the future will be water. Our state's future is going to be dependent on water. We have a lot of other things going on, but that is the critical issue for the years to come, and we need to get a good handle on that. So we will be taking a look at that in detail. I have some bills that, because the session ended so quickly, they did not get through the system, and I will be re-entering those bills. So one of them in particular is the teachers. I wanted to increase teachers' pay by an equal amount of money to increase their CAPERS payments, because that, of all the CAPERS groups that are involved, they are the lowest, and we need to help them in some way to encourage and to get that built back up for their future and all of the CAPERS employees' futures. And then I have a couple other bills where my constituents have contacted me. There's inconsistencies in the laws that has affected them adversely. So we're writing bills to make those corrections, and then I will carry those through the entire legislature, both the House and Senate. I will testify in both and all of that and work with both parties, whatever, to get these bills across. And with that, I thank you all again. Everybody go vote.
Thank you. Susie Carlson, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I look forward to getting back to Topeka. We got cut short, and a lot of business got left undone. And as Representative Highland mentioned, there were a lot of bills that were below the line that were good bills from both sides, and we didn't get to address them. And that's going to be very important. One of the things I think is going to be extremely important when we get back is getting the fundings and taking care of broadband for the state, for new businesses, for education, for healthcare. Broadband expansion reaches everyone and touches everyone in the state of Kansas. That's going to be very important. Some of the things that, as Ron stated, you don't know what committees you're going to be on. And I felt privileged, and yet children and seniors and social services budget were both very difficult committees. We're talking about from the very youngest of our people to the very oldest, and trying to figure out how to take care of them that need to be helped the most was very difficult. But it will work out, and I look forward to it again. One of the things that we voted for or against in the financial institution and pensions is we voted against the reamortization of CAPERS. We've got to keep people's retirement safe, and that includes the teachers, lawmakers, and everyone else like that. But I want to thank everybody, and the most important thing is to go vote your heart, vote your conscience, and please just vote, and thank you all very much.
Thank you. Jim Bethauer.
I apologize. My auto cut out for a moment when I heard civil instead of civility on question 2. I do believe elected officials need to come together and work with each other regardless of political party. I will be willing to work with partners and other representatives across the state to get things done. I want to thank everyone who took time to share their views today, and all of you listening and not watching, but listening. As a small business owner, I know the economic pain the COVID shutdown has caused across Kansas. As a farmer, I feel for livestock producers who had to destroy cattle and hog herds because packing plants were too slow to adjust. Do you support Medicaid expansion? Do you want to end taking money from transportation and education? to fill budget gaps? Do you want to end missed CAPER payments? Then I need your vote. Do you want an independent, moderate person ready to pull up their sleeves and work hard in Topeka, as I have done on the farm for decades? I'm asking for your vote. Jim Vader for the House District 64. Thank you.
Thank you. Sydney Carlin.
Thank you for this forum. It's been a different year for me without a challenger, and I'm not complaining, but it is different when you have to try to campaign and there's nobody out there disagreeing with you. So I've enjoyed this. I find a lot of common agreement with all of us about the issues of Kansas, and I look forward to working with any of you that are elected. And it is a great responsibility and a great place to be working. I'm very pragmatic, and I really take my work very seriously. I love to interact with you all when you're in the office, and whether you're there as a visitor or a lobbyist or a representative or a senator. Your concerns are really important to me, and I take those concerns to Topeka if I can make a difference with that. My bills that I wrote, one was insurance for autism therapy. One was a fair compensation for the eminent domain action. That one I worked with Farm Bureau. Farmers were being encroached upon by cities and their land taken into the city without fair compensation. The false claims against the state brings millions of dollars every year into Kansas. I had to work with a judicial chairman that was a Republican, and he and I worked with the Senate side. And I took I had 15 minutes with every legislator on that bill. I think we can work across the board. I have other bills, about 20 bills, but the last few years, it's been more difficult. The balance of government has shifted so much that no one has to hear my bills. They have other bills they can hear in their own party, and there's only so much time. That's one reason. The other reason is they're not in my party, and they're the leaders. But things can be managed in Kansas, and I look forward to helping to provide a handle on the virus through our education of our communities. And
Thank you, Sydney. Mike Dotson.
Yes, well, thanks. I just add my thanks to you and K-Man for putting this on so that all the folks watching can make up their minds with a little bit more information than is ordinarily available. Some things that I wish to work on. I want to make sure that we support our local businesses as much as we possibly can. This is important not only for their livelihood, but for all those people that work in those businesses who are our neighbors. Going back to what Ron Highland and I were talking about, this ROI business is important. And this is one of those things that we've done with the North Campus Corridor. And we've invested up there to enhance everything that's going on across the food service corridor, the food science corridor, to include INBAF. This is a jewel and something that has great promise for the Manhattan area and for the entire state of Kansas. And I think as these big tech companies look around and have found out that it's probably not good to have everybody working in a 25,000 person building, that they can work just as well remotely. Why can't those people work just as well from Manhattan, Kansas? In Manhattan, Kansas, we have a terrific quality of life. We've got good health care, we've got good education, and we've got parks and rec and things like that for people to do. So kind of the three things: business, I want to increase business across the state of Kansas. I want to work on education, make as much as we can for our teachers. These teachers are working enormously hard right now. I've got two daughters who are teachers in the state of Washington, and it is brutal. But I want to make sure we've got quality education for our kids the way that we expect it to be. Technology is big. We're going to have to advance that. Healthcare, to include mental health care that is so vital to what we do here, and particularly in our local area. So thanks, everybody, and please get out and vote on the 3rd of November.
Thank you. And Cheryl Arthur. Cheryl, unmute, please. There we go.
Sorry. I'd like to, again, thank you to the League of Women Voters and to K-Man for providing this opportunity to reach out to the people in District 67. I'm working hard to get to know as many of the people in 67 as I can. And that has been a #1 priority in my campaign. The opportunities for the citizens in District 67, as Mike said, are almost limitless. We are a kind people, we are a civil people, and we are a concerned people. I appreciate transparency in all aspects of government, and with the recent attempts in other parts of the state and certainly in other parts of the country, the attempts at voter suppression, I would like to say a shout out to Rich Vargo, our county clerk. He has been very transparent and very helpful in getting the vote out. And so kudos to him. Most of you know that I've spoken with that, I have a great concern about education, promoting funding for education, strong advocate for Medicaid expansion. I want to promote community protection and social services. Those have taken a hit in recent years, and I know that we can continue our support for those. I also advocate for comprehensive plans for energy production. We don't have an energy plan. We do have a strong water plan, and we need to get the 2020 update passed. I want to thank you to the people of 67, and I'm asking for your support. Please be sure and vote on November 3rd. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. And thank you to all the candidates for the Kansas House for answering our questions and sharing their views. We will now take a short break to prepare for the next segment featuring candidates for Kansas Senate District 22. Welcome back to the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. My name is Marissa Larson and I am your moderator. This is our last segment and is devoted to candidates running for Kansas State Senate District 22. We have Tom Hawk, Democrat, and Craig Browser, Republican, with us today. We will begin with 2-minute opening statements from each of the candidates. And then after opening statements, I will ask the candidates questions that have been prepared by the League of Women Voters with input from members and community members. And the segment will conclude with candidates making 2-minute closing statements. So for opening statements, we will start with Tom Hawk.
Hi, I'm Tom Hawk, and I'd like to first thank the League of Women Voters for the forum and their dedication to good governance. I'd also like to thank K-Man, and greetings to my opponent, Craig. I am a husband, a father, a grandfather. As people tune in, I know that they want to get answers to some key questions. And I suspect one of the questions is, why am I running? Well, my motivation remains the same as it always has been, to help people and to solve problems and to hopefully make life better for our hardworking families. My policy goals have remained the same also. They're clear: good schools, good jobs, and fair taxes. The past 4 years, while I've been in the Senate working in a bipartisan way, we've been able to fund our K-12 schools and end court litigation and repeal the disastrous Brownback tax experiment to get our state on solid financial footing and bring fairness back to our tax code. Setting clear budget priorities has made it possible to fund our 10-year highway plan without a tax increase and to also restore most of the Brownback funding cuts to K-State and higher education. So what do I bring to the table? My 33-year career as a teacher, counselor, and superintendent in Manhattan, Ogden prepared me for the leadership roles I've worked up to in the past 2 years. I've also been a small business owner with a large national photography event photography business that's given me critical business experience. Experience is important. I know our districts, its strengths, and its people. and it's my connections to every state agency that helps solve people's problems. It's also my position as a ranking member on the Senate Budget Committee to be at the table for you, my voters. I have deep roots and experience in the district for over 50 years, and I'm a founding member of the Civility Caucus, and my approach is always bipartisan. I'm here to work for everyone and with everyone. I'd appreciate your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you. Craig Bowser.
Well, good. Thank you, Marissa. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you, K-Man, for giving me this opportunity. My name is Craig Bowser. I'm a fifth-generation Kansas farmer. I've been a small business owner since 2005. I served our nation for 24 years in the United States Army, and today I'm the Chief Executive Officer for a 501c3 not-for-profit organization right here in Manhattan that helps military veterans and others enter the agriculture workforce. I'm running for the Kansas State Senate because our state is heading in the wrong direction. We're facing a $1 billion tax revenue shortfall, record unemployment, and skyrocketing taxes. Kansas ranks dead last in economic recovery, and neither the governor nor the legislature has any idea how to fix it. We need leaders in Topeka, not career politicians. I'll get government out of the way so our farmers, our businesses, and our families can prosper. When you vote for me, you're voting for creating jobs, healthcare choices, and supporting higher education. My priorities are simple. I will work hard for the people of this district, supporting small businesses and job creation, advancing veterans issues, and fighting for agriculture. I believe our government can and must do better. I will make improvements that trim costs and produce better results. My vision for our state is clear. I will put Kansas on the road to economic recovery. I will support Kansas families and businesses. I will make healthcare more affordable and accessible. I will support public education to help Kansas grow. Bringing positive change to Kansas begins by changing who we elect. I'll fight to defend the values that make our nation and our state great. Thank you.
Thank you. As I ask the questions, I will rotate who goes first, which is fairly easy with two candidates. So you guys will just flip flop. So on the first question, I will start with Tom Hawk. The pandemic has revealed difficult political, economic, racial, and social divides in Kansas. As a senator, what problems will be your top priorities and how might you address them?
Thank you for that question. I think the biggest thing we have to look at on the pandemic is as we come back to Topeka, we're going to have to be balancing our budget. I'm on the Senate Ways and Committee. I'm the ranking member on that committee. So I'm one of the people that's at the table when we do our final budget and bring it to the entire Senate and then the legislature and the governor. So that's going to be the critical thing. And things are looking better at the moment because our revenues are higher than what we thought they might be early in the summer. But I still predict after we get our consensus revenue estimation here in mid-November that we'll be looking at certainly reduction in revenue. I'm hopeful that we'll get a stimulus package from Congress and that will backfill our budget. And if that's the case, like it was with the 2008 recession, then things will actually be looking better. I've also served on the Spark Committee, which is how we do the federal funds. And we've been looking at ways to better position our state. Healthcare is certainly a critical thing. And we tried to get the PPE to people and to help safety with people in nursing homes and around the state. Also want to get the economy recovered and our broadband revenues that we put into that. We had $60 million into trying to expand broadband. I think will be very helpful to put us on a good path for recovery.
Thank you. Craig Bowser.
Yeah, thanks. Our families and businesses are struggling in the wake of the pandemic. It's vitally important that we're focused on getting businesses open and giving those businesses the resources they need to begin growing and creating jobs again. I've been a small business owner since 2005, and I know how to create jobs and improve our economy. I've been honored to serve as a CEO for an organization that's focused on exactly that, helping create jobs and get veterans into the workforce. That experience has taught me that in order for our economy to grow, we've got to get government out of the way and offer the relief to our citizens and businesses. Kansas faces many challenges. We need a leader who has the experience in creating jobs, not another career politician. I believe our state needs a comprehensive strategic and economic recovery plan that brings together all stakeholders who will work together to grow our economy and help our state recover from the pandemic.
Okay, on to question number 2. And Craig, you will go first. In Kansas, nearly all the laws passed stem from bills whose authors are anonymous. Would you support changing the rules so the process for how proposed bills are heard, debated, and voted upon is more transparent? Why or why not?
I do. I believe in a transparent government. I think there's a process that we need to follow, but certainly transparency in government is important. When I go around and I've talked to thousands of voters this past year, the biggest concern that voters have are, the jobs and the economy. We've got to get our state's economy back on track. We've got to get recovered from this pandemic. People are very interested in education and supporting Kansas State University. I'll fight for that and make sure we do that. They're very interested in healthcare and how we can protect our seniors. I want to protect our children and families. I want to help increase medical innovation in our state. I want to save taxpayer dollars, and I want to make sure that we help our rural healthcare system.
Okay, thank you. Tom Hawk.
I actually have sponsored a bill with a Republican that would require us to have names on every bill. And I think that's a very healthy thing for our voters to know, as well as groups in the state. The current system we have now, even lobbyists can introduce bills in our committee. And I think when you send somebody to Topeka, and that's one advantage I bring as an experienced legislator, is I know the pieces of the system that I don't think are working well and are certainly not transparent for the voters. So the bill that I helped write and co-sponsor with a fellow Republican friend of mine would require that name to be on the bill. And then the people at home would know who to call. And we also would not have nearly so much bad legislation that's introduced. I think it costs $3,000 to $5,000 for every bill that's written. And the fact that we have people who are not in the legislature that can introduce bills, I think is a waste of taxpayer funds. And I think that we'll find out if we actually could get this bill passed. There's a lot of pushback because I think some people don't want their names on the bills, but I think we absolutely need to have names on the bills. And I think that would make the process move much fairer and much more transparently and more efficiently.
Thank you. On our next question, Tom Hawk, you will go first. Does Kansas need Medicare expansion? And if no, why not? If yes, why?
I absolutely think Kansas needs its Medicaid expansion. Probably we want to keep the Medicare that we have, but CanCare and Medicaid expansion is really important, I think. And actually, we've had a majority of people there. Leadership has blocked it. We have, as taxpayers, have $4.3 billion that has gone out of our state and gone to other states. Or all the surrounding states, our neighbors, have passed Medicaid expansion. 39 states have, and we have 130,000 people who are the working poor who would qualify to have insurance. It would give them that insurance. It would take a burden off the charity care that our hospitals have. I'm very worried about a lot of our rural hospitals actually surviving, and it was built into the bill originally to have Medicaid expansion happen at the state level, and most states did that. And I think their economy, it would probably cost us initial $30 million, but that money would be recouped, I think, according to the Kansas Hospital Association, probably within the first year, and maybe even with some things they've offered, not even take that out of the budget. So I think it's smart budgeting. That's one thing I bring to the Senate. I want us to do smart budgeting and utilize those federal dollars that we have coming to us.
Thank you. Craig Bowser.
Thank you. Two-thirds, this is a very important issue, by the way, and two-thirds of our hospitals in Kansas have been losing money since Obamacare was introduced. And so rather than expanding a broken can care system, I'll focus on meaningful healthcare reforms that will increase access and decrease costs for all Kansans. There are already a limited number of providers who accept Medicaid in Kansas, and adding more able-bodied working age adults to the Medicaid rolls will only make it harder for those who already rely on it. Additionally, the cost, Tom mentioned $30 million, that cost for the program will further strain our state budget that is already facing the effects of the pandemic. I want to help our seniors. I want to lower the cost of drugs. I want to protect our children and our families. I want to increase medical innovation. I want to save taxpayer dollars. I believe in addressing the opioid crisis that our state faces, and I want to emphasize the importance of supporting and helping our rural healthcare system. I will only support legislation that does those things.
Thank you. On to our next question, which Craig Bowser, I will let you field first. Do you agree with the decisions by the Kansas Legislative Coordinating Council concerning the overturning of Governor Kelly's pandemic response? Why or why not?
Well, I certainly don't think it's the state's place to tell a private business whether they're important, whether they should remain open, whether they should be closed. I'm opposed to that, and I think this is the beautiful part about our government is the checks and balances that our system provides.
Okay, Tom Hawk.
Craig, that was too short a response. I was still writing down some of the things I wanted to say. Actually, I think Governor Kelly and Director Norman, Dr. Norman, have done a great job in an unprecedented panic that with the COVID-19. We got no direction from the federal level. We were competing for PPE supplies. We had not been through this type of long-term emergency. And I think the governor showed courage and showed how really what a good leader she is. Good leaders take up whatever the problem is at the time. And she tried to make sure that we did not get a huge surge and kept our emergency rooms open and our ICUs. We didn't want to have our hospitals overrun. And so I think she made the best decision. Now we have 2020 vision and hindsight, and we can see that maybe some of the things in terms, especially in the governor has said this, and I think the LCC as well as the State Finance Council wanted to make sure that we keep our businesses open. We need the revenue to come in, and we need it to keep people working. But if you look at all the things we've been able to do with the Spark money, both helping our health departments, helping our hospitals, helping our nursing homes, as well as we've given out over $6 billion to our state's businesses to keep them, as many of them afloat as we can. And we've taken some proactive things that will get our state in a good position for the future.
Thank you. Next question, Tom Hawk, I will let you field this one first. The legislature will be charged with drawing new legislative districts during the second year after the census. Would you vote in favor of an amendment creating an impartial committee to draw the new legislative districts? Why or why not?
I would support an impartial commission. I had hoped before I heard the news, I think last week when Republican Senator and Senate President Wagle was at a partisan group in Wichita and talked about how they wanted to control that so they could gerrymander the districts that would keep the supermajority of Republicans. And I think people in Kansas want to know that it's fair. I think there are a lot of things we want to look at in terms of income levels, geographic, not just how many Republicans or Democrats are in a district. And so I think the only way to avoid that really crashing and being a problem is to have an impartial panel. The last time this was done 10 years ago, the legislature just could not get that done and it had to go to the court. So I think it would be wise to get people that were not partisan and that we would set the criteria. I don't think it will be easy to write that bill in the legislature, but I think the people in Kansas want the very best people to represent them in the legislature and in Congress. And I think that impartial panel is really the best and fairest way to do that and the most transparent.
Thank you. Craig Bowser.
Yeah, I would not support that because it strips away the power of the people. And remember, this is a government for the people, by the people. So we, as citizens of our state, we elect representatives to go to Topeka and represent us, and we trust them to do the redistricting that they're supposed to do the job they're supposed to do. And when you strip that away from the people, you're doing a disservice to everybody. Plus, it's, you know, who's to say who's impartial? That's going to be kind of a challenge to find an impartial group who can redistrict. So I would oppose that.
Okay, thank you. Next question, Craig Bowser, you will field this one first. Does the Kansas legislature have a role in addressing systemic racism in Kansas? And if so, what areas need intervention and how might that best be legislated? And if not, what systems do we have in place that need to be maintained for fair treatment under the law?
So I think if I understood your question, it was, should the legislature legislate social behavior? I guess the answer to that would probably be no. I think that would be very difficult to do. As someone who's served in the military, I've served with and respected people of all races and ethnicities. In order for us to move forward as a country, we must focus on creating opportunities for all Kansans. We must have strong education and a strong economy that offers jobs and a future for all of our citizens. Again, positive change begins by who we elect. I'll fight to defend the values that make our nation and our state great. The belief that all people are created equal by God spurs me onward to fight for policies that will improve the lives of all Kansans.
Thank you. Tom Hawk.
I think one of the areas that I've been working on that I think relates to this, and I think when you look at some of the insidious things that happen under the banner of systemic racism, you get down to how do we treat one another. And I've been one of the co-founders of a legislative civility caucus. And I think we model that in the legislature by how we treat one another and how we promote democracy. And part of that is learning how to listen, making sure that we get data and really look at how our laws impact different groups in our society. I know we have had legislation in the past that wants to look at impact data. We have some commissions that I think the legislature ought to support that works at this. And then I think we need to look at our laws and see how our criminal justice system actually responds to different groups of people and see what that impact is. And so I think that is all part of the law and part of the role of the legislature to do that. I heard Martin Luther King when I was a senior in college, and that had a profound impact on me about how we ought to treat one another, particularly when we have different ethnic backgrounds, different colored skin, and judge us by our character, not by the color of skin, and not do that with violence, but to model that we can do that peacefully and really respect one another.
Thank you. This will be our last question before closing statements. And Tom Hawk, I will let you field it first. Do you believe that current Kansas laws support the right to vote for all citizens? Do you see changes that need to be made, either broadening or restricting current laws and protocols?
I think in general, our laws do support the right for people to vote. I get concerned about some people who are interested in suppressing the vote, and they use an argument that maybe there's fraud. I don't think we found any evidence of fraud out there. We want to make sure our voting system is safe. We had a bill that did pass, I think, out of the Senate, but maybe did not get passed out of the legislature, that would model it in Wichita, where you could go to any polling place. And I think we have sort of the traditional thing where voting is on one day. Our county commissioner, I'm sorry, our county clerk here, Rich Vargo, has worked very hard to encourage advanced voting. And that's a mail-in process, but people apply for that. He believes it's very safe. I agree with him. And I think that gets more participation. My fundamental belief is the more people that vote, and I think it's a fundamental, I'm a former teacher and educator. I think it's a fundamental responsibility of our democracy for a person to vote, and we ought to encourage people to do that and make that system as easy and yet maintain its safety and fairness so that people turn out to vote. And I think we're going to see a larger turnout this particular election.
Thank you. Craig Bowser.
Well, thank you. Kansas is not the first nor the only state to require voter ID. And I support that. I have to tell you a quick story. In 2004 and 2005, I was serving in the Army in Iraq and helped conduct what many international observers call the first free and fair election in Iraq's history. I was instrumental in that. One of the key things that the Iraqis were concerned about was voter identification and voter fraud. So, that's a third world country that was wanted to make sure that everyone who was legally authorized to vote could vote. They encouraged it, but they were also very concerned about making sure they had voter ID and that the right people voted in the right locations. And you probably remember seeing, even after they voted, they would have kind of a blue mark on their finger. So very important. I believe our voting system here in Kansas is one of the best and safest in the country.
Thank you. Those were all of our questions. So we will now move on to closing statements, and you will each have 2 minutes to make that closing statement. And we will start with Craig Bowser.
Well, again, thanks again for having me here. Great opportunity to visit with you. I think the voters have a very clear choice in November. Our state is heading in the wrong direction with the $1 billion tax revenue shortfall, record unemployment, and skyrocketing taxes. We keep voting for the career politicians, we're going to keep getting the same results, more debt and higher taxes. When you vote for me, you're voting for an improved economy and a better Kansas. I will end the reckless, out of control spending that our state has incurred. Did you know our state's budget has increased 49% over the last 10 years? I want to make sure that we're supporting education and that we have a strategic plan that aligns our state's objectives with our educational needs. My vision for our state is clear. Again, I'll put Kansas on the road to economic recovery. I'll support Kansas families. I'll make Kansas healthcare more affordable and accessible. And I'll support Kansas public education to make sure our state is able to grow. I'll fight to defend the values that make our nation and our state great. You can learn more about our campaign at craigbowser.com. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Tom Hawk.
Thanks again for being here, and thanks, Craig, for a forum and a good discussion. I have old values that were taught to me by my church, my teachers, and my family in Colby, where I grew up. They're values of fairness, kindness, humbleness, values of working hard and creating community, putting family first. I've always listened to all sides, made time to hear various opinions, and that served our district well. I believe in bipartisanship, and that's why I co-founded the Legislative Civility Caucus. It takes fair dialogue and good relationships to arrive at good public policy, people before politics. I also believe a person should be invested over time in their community. I've done that for over 50 years in our district. My opponent has not. I bought my home here, pay property taxes, raised my children here, invested in my career and business, and go to church here. I know our pillars of success, K-State, Fort Riley, and our business and farming communities. I've passed legislation helping all of these pillars. I'm an independent, moderate voice for our district. I'm not endorsed by any of the extremist groups that support my opponent. Some of them are funded by the Koch brothers, and I believe their goal is to lower their business taxes, and that will raise our property taxes, a tax that's already too high. I've worked my way up to the table over the last 4 years on Senate budget to be in that ranking position. This is important to K-State, our local business, and our health and business communities and disability groups. I fought and got funds restored for K-State. We should remember that we're in a pandemic, and I've been on the Federal Funds Distribution Spark Committee working to keep all of us safe and also restore our state and local economies, very important to all of us. A new senator simply cannot learn enough or attain the budget positions to effectively deal with these recovery issues. It's been an honor for me to serve our district and its incredible communities, families, students, and citizens. I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you. Thank you to Tom Hawk and Craig Bowser for answering our questions and sharing your views. This concludes our forum. I'd like to once again thank our co-sponsors, the American Association of University Women of Manhattan and the Manhattan Area Chamber of Commerce. Thank you to our timekeepers and other volunteers who make the League's forums run smoothly. And thank you to Dave Lewis and Brandon Peoples and everyone at News Radio K-Man for their help and participation today. As a reminder, in-person advanced voting has begun in the county office building and the K-State Student Union Bluemont Room. The deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot is October 27th. Your completed mail-in ballot may be delivered in person to the election office in the county office building prior to and on election day, or placed in an official Riley County drop box, which there are several throughout the community, or delivered in person to any polling place in Riley County on election day, or mailed and postmarked by election day. Advanced voting ends at noon on Monday, November 2nd, and election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. So please vote. Thank you.